Get that quieted down. We thank you all for coming. Round two of Sea Level Rise Fund. We had a great experience last night with folks over on Lopez, talking about a specific location that actually has inundation is their particular challenge with homes and septic systems being inundated. So this project represents another pilot location in the county. And we'll be going through all of that with our consultants here too. I don't think I actually introduced who I was, right? Kendra Smith, I'm the director of environmental stewardship here at Maryland. So today's fun and workshopping is to sit down and have a conversation about things that you value and shoot around different ideas about the situation with Blind Bay Road, or if you have other sea level rise locations that you want to share with us, and challenges and possible solutions, you're welcome to share those with us as well. Take those notes down. I know there are locations similar to over on Lopez where people may be low and have flooding risk. So don't think that this is the only thing you can talk to us about. We're open to having a discussion about all matters of sea level rise and the different scenarios that we have facing us here in the county. So and I just wanted to make a point about the we've got 3 different strategies up here that represent kind of various extremes of like, what if we did nothing? What if we armored the road fully? What if we thought about where a new road could go? They're all completely conceptual. There is like absolutely no, nothing is designed. It's literally a line on a map. And the idea was to just get the juices flowing about thinking about what could possibly be done. Anything that the county, that we came to some conclusion, there's a long process that would involve that. It would have to involve all of the property owners. We'd have to figure out how to fund it. So this is very much just the start of a conversation. We know that like how as a community do you want to deal with it? Because it's not the county coming in telling you what you have to do. You already know that there's some problems with the road. So how collectively are we going to figure out how to fix some of those things? So I wanted to mention, I've got multiple team members here today. So we've got things covered. Tyler Davis is the project manager on this. Some of you might have connected with him. Susan Eshelman in the back there is one of our water resources technicians. And then Angela Broderick is our climate and sustainability coordinator. I was thinking of Andrea and Rachel, who are from Herrera, who will introduce themselves and their expertise. So any questions before we get started? Thank you so much for coming. This full crowd. We're super excited. I'll also mention, we've got Jane Fuller, who is our council rep here. And we also have 2 staff from Public Works, Colin Huntermark and Jerry Hayes. So there's lots of people here. Happy to answer questions you might have as we kind of go through the process. Did you want to say anything, Jane?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I did attend the session last night on Lopez. It was really well done. Thank you to Herrera colleagues and environmental stewardship staff. It was just a very thoughtful, challenging discussion, but you executed what you wanted to in terms of getting a sense of what people are concerned about, what some of their values are on all of this. So that was, as a council person, it was really, really meaningful. So I thank you for doing that. We'll talk more from there. I very much hope that this will be the same exercise here. I asked that Colin Kitchener, as the Director of Public Works and our county engineer, be here with his colleague and staff person, Jerry Hayes, because there are some short-term and more immediate aspects of Blind Bay that we're all aware of. That is not up for discussion today. I would like to be clear that this is an environmental stewardship is embarking upon today due to learning, listening, learning, exchanging, so that they can report back to council what communities feel about the challenges we have in the medium longer term of sea level rise and how it's impacting our infrastructure, that is critical to residents. So while Colin is here to listen as well, because we're gonna have to do work on Blind Bay, everybody knows that. We're hoping it doesn't have to be done on an emergency basis. So the county is planning for that. There are a whole other set of challenges in terms of remedial work that would need to be done to ensure that road is viable into the future. The sea level rise conversation that we're all gonna go through now is of a different order. Okay, it's of a bigger order. And so I just want everybody to stay focused on that. And if there's a further conversation another time about more immediately what the county contemplates here, we can have that discussion. We're just not having it here and now. Having said that, Colin is a very valuable resource to all of us in our county in terms of, yeah, some very engineering dimensional challenges, and he can add to the conversation in that regard, and Jerry can as well. And so I value the fact that he's here. I want to thank them for taking the time. So I'm very grateful for, this is unbelievable, this crowd. You blasted Lopez out of the water. So I'm like, I've got those statement bragging rights. No, thanks everybody for taking me.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's not easy to get started. Yeah. We want to be respectful of everyone's time and make sure that we are talking at you, not for a lot of it, but that we're actually hearing from you. So we want to get into the activity part. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Well,
Yeah, I'd just like to make a statement. And,
you want to do it now?
taking Jerry over this morning. My name's Cheryl. I was once given my special place. The scientific references that were presented last meeting, I watched the video. It looks like we're indicating a 1 foot to 6 foot sea level rise in the next 100 years. It's like 600% range of variance. That's very difficult to plan. As I consider whatever options are presented, I recognize that some of these options presented have a road drawn through private property. I was surprised that the consultants, the county have not reached out to the people in which the roads were drawn out. I asked 48 hours ahead of time. It was not possible. I would think it would be in the best interest of the consulting, the county, share this information ahead of time to these landowners. I would think it would be quite difficult for any of the landowners to digest that information real time to provide gallery walk feedback. A lot of trade-offs. And some people have been here for 80 years and that property is going to be measured. I would like to think before we all provide feedback, like for everybody to think of those landowners, you being in those shoes as we do that. And what would happen if roles were reversed and that road was coming 50% closer to your house. Given the great variance in the predicted data, the fact that these limited king tide events are known and scheduled, that the fetch of Blind Bay is exceptionally limited, and adverse possession is a very challenging process for elected, county, and community. I encourage our community to focus on near-term road safety issues and road calming measures. 3 things. The ability to put up just temporary lane edge markings so we don't have someone accidentally drive off the road into the bay. That'd be a drowning situation. How about a flood level gauge at the lowest point on the road? So if somebody knows it's 6 inches or 6 feet deep. And lastly, sorry, everybody's self-interested. Here's mine. ways to mitigate excessive speed along Blind Bay Road. Raised crosswalks from homes going to the other side. Edge Lane Road that was mentioned in Port Townsend. Or discouraging cars and trucks to park right where that car is parked in next to that. Thank you. I'm sorry about taking up too much time.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, I appreciate the comments. This is precisely why I tried to put some parameters around the discussion. Okay, because if we start delving into a lot of what was raised just now, and I respectfully acknowledge and heard your comments, I think everybody did. We could get into a lot of weeds very quickly and really undermine the entire exercise. So while I appreciate what you just said, I do also want to mention there were property owners who were present last night, Lopez property owners who own property right in Port Stanley, where the water is coming, where their septics are being inundated and all the rest of it. And so, I encourage everybody, when you got questions, ask them as early as you can and expect a reasonable response. Asking, these folks to talk to property owners in real time, a couple hours before their meeting. I don't have an answer to that, but maybe they can explain that to you afterwards. I just ask that this be a respectful discussion. We understand the parameters. Let's put our questions together, and we can share them with Public Works about the road. If there's things we get into stick points, let's just put a pin in it, note our questions, and we can follow up.
Absolutely.
But I really appreciate you putting, what you wanted to say and for raising it.
Definitely. Super helpful. Those are the things you're gonna need to be thinking about. It's your neighbor's property. If that's the direction you all choose to go somewhere down the road. Remember, and some things I said that I forgot to say previous when we were on Lopez, that we've got kind of two big variables. It's a temporal variable, the timing of when certain things are gonna have to happen. So there's some time, longer time for some things, shorter time for others. And then there's the issue of the spatial scale. Maybe there are adjustments made on a slow and steady pace over in certain places, but not in others. So a lot of flexibility here. The idea is that you come together as a community and help to decide how things are gonna roll out. And it's not just, in the next month or the next year, it's like the next 25 years. What are you thinking about? Next 50 years, pay attention to the zones how far things have flood, and where the impacts are in different locations. So, I think that's pretty much it. I'll turn it over to Rachel to blast through some slides and then we'll get into gallery and other things. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, nice to be with you all today. I see many familiar faces from the first workshop. I'm curious show of hands who was here for that one back at the end of September. Thank you for coming back. Thanks for bringing your friends and neighbors. My name is Rachel. I'm a water resources engineer at Herrera. I'm here with my colleague Andrea McLennan, who's a coastal geomorphologist. And we do a lot of work with communities around sea level rise and understanding the impacts and changes for that. So what we have on our agenda for today, I'm going to give just a little overview of things we talked about at the first workshop, introduce the 3 different strategies that we have. And then we're going to have an interactive portion where you see these posters around the room. We're going to have you get up, talk to each other, move around, ask questions. We'll have a little break after that, and then we really want to focus the second half of the workshop on a discussion. So kind of pulling out key pieces that we talked about at each of the stations, and then hearing other questions, ideas, feedback from all of you. So really encourage you this is a chance to provide
I
feedback.
have one comment. Can you speak a little bit slower
Oh,
and
of
more
course.
loudly for those that
Yeah,
are hearing?
no problem.
Thank you.
I sometimes speak fast, trying to get through stuff, so
Sure.
thank you for that reminder.
Thank you.
And folks in the back, can you hear me okay? All right, I'll try to project. Okay, so as Kendra and Jane shared, purpose for today is exploring different adaptation strategies. We were here for the first workshop. We heard from you all. We want to know cost estimates. We want to know what this could look like. We want to have some more specifics. So back today to share those with you. So presenting these conceptual ideas, getting your feedback and hearing, giving you an opportunity to think through the benefits and the trade-offs for each of those, and really support future decision-making and starting to plan early. And as Kendra said, thank you all for taking your time to be here. These are hard conversations, so we appreciate all of you approaching this with curiosity and respect and listening to each other. Okay, so a couple takeaways from the first workshop. We know the coast is changing. We know that Blind Bay Road has challenges with impacts to that. We're starting the conversation and continuing the conversation around what to do about those changes. This is really a community responsibility, and there's many different strategies. Each has trade-offs, but we do know that acting early and starting to plan early gives us more options. And as Kendra shared, it's not just Blind Bay Road. There's many roads throughout the islands that are having similar challenges. So this is the second of 4 workshops that we're doing. We were on Lopez last night looking at Port Stanley Road. We'll be on Orcas tonight looking at Deer Harbor Road, and we'll be on San Juan Island tomorrow looking at False Bay Road. And each of these are kind of representative examples of different challenges with flooding and erosion. So using these as examples to. And the 3 strategies that we're looking at today is 1, no management, which is a bit of a challenging name for that. What that means is we're allowing natural processes to continue with minimal intervention. So that would be allowing the road to degrade over time and letting that happen. So that's kind of one more extreme option. Another option would be protect the road. So that would be focusing resources to maintain the road in its current position through elevating or armoring sections of it to protect it where it is. And the third option would be to realign and restore. So look at relocating or sections of the road, put them in areas where they will not be impacted and restore the shoreline in those areas. And just some visuals, because I find it's helpful to know what could that look like. These are kind of extreme examples again, but from Washington, here maybe a road would be closed for a portion of time. It already floods intermittently. An example from Maine here, where a road was allowed to degrade. Protecting the road, also a very extreme example there from New Zealand, where there's a lot of armoring. The road was really built up. And then a realign and restore example here from Canada, where it went from armored to then more of a beach area with a path that goes through it there. We do want to highlight that for any of these strategies, there are trade-offs that would be common to all of them. So a little bit less here, we don't have as many homes that are impacted in this area. Same thing for septic systems, but there could also be variable impacts to habitats. And these strategies can be used together. As Kendra said, we have different changes over time and different changes in different locations. So it is very likely that a combination of different strategies might be needed for different sections of the road. So we've presented these as kind of 3 different alternatives, but it's very possible that some combination might be effective. With that, Andrea is going to give a little bit of an overview of each of them before we do the gallery walk.
All I do is hitting the screen in front of me and beside me with my glasses. I have new glasses, so bear with me. Okay, so as you've heard, we have these 3 different strategies that are really representing kind of a broad spectrum of adapting or responding to climate change. and sea level rise here locally on Shaw. And I think it's important to keep in mind that these are just design concepts. They haven't been advanced. There's no planning as you've already heard, but this is a starting point for us to have a conversation, for you to react and provide feedback on what you like and you don't like. And as the local experts, the people who see the flooding and see the erosion occurring, share your knowledge with us, and that will help to advance, the next concepts that are developed. As obviously, this is a long-term process, and with your knowledge and your input, you can find the best solution for the community. Okay, so as many of you are likely aware, there are many areas that are threatened along Blind Bay from coastal erosion, bank erosion, bluff erosion, erosion of fill along the road prism, as well as areas that are vulnerable to flooding, particularly during our king tides, which are starting like tomorrow is next day. The road's pretty close to the water level right now, or maybe in the next hour, but probably not quite overtopping yet. But as soon as we have like a storm surge or big low pressure system moves in, or any waves from the north, you may see some overtopping and contributing to some of the damage and cracks on the road, or maybe water flowing under the road substrate. So we have multiple threats and that are occurring in various places along the road between the ferry landing. And these results the mapping that you're looking at here and in strategy 1 is from the vulnerability assessment that it was conducted for the county, and that is all accessible on the county's website. And there's a QR code on the back of the fact sheet that will take you to some of those materials so you can explore that data product. But I just want to say that this is best available science mapping, but it's still limited. It still has some shortcomings. What was applied in this mapping is a 2-foot and a 5-foot scenario. So the areas that you see shown I'm just going to describe this to you, and this is going to kind of go for all of the slides as well as the strategy 1 mapping. There's areas shown with blue hatching, or this cross hatching here. That is the FEMA flood mapping. That's already areas that are within the 100-year flood zone. These are areas that are likely inundated during those king tide events, especially when it co-occurs with, with a big low pressure system. We'll have a bit of a storm surge. So that's where you're going to be seeing flooding on a more regular basis. And with sea level rise, that's going to increase in frequency and magnitude. Then these other blue colors here, these represent areas that have an additional 2 feet of sea level rise and different levels of storm. So either a 1-year storm or a 100-year storm. And then the areas shown in these red or kind of rosy hues have 5 feet of sea level rise. Now, although that's not anticipated to occur until likely beyond 2100, it's just important to keep in mind when making an investment as large as a revised road corridor, that you want that investment to be long lasting. Sea level rise is going to continue to occur, so you wouldn't want to invest $10 million and have it only be a practical solution for 10 years. You want it to be lasting 25, 50 years, and however long the roads department practically plans for. It's different everywhere you go. But obviously, you as community members who are paying taxes and funding the road system, you have a voice in that. So you want to have that knowledge in hand as you think about what may be an appropriate response. So moving on to the kind of southern end of the shoreline, you can see these are the areas here that frequently flood that you're likely familiar with. And you can see how they're going to expand over time. And I said, like both spatially as well as in the frequency in which these occur. So a 100-year flood is gonna become, more frequent event in the future, like, up to 50 times a year, they say by 2100, according to some, high level, coastal engineers. I can send you the article. So, as a result of these impacts, over time, if we do nothing, you will see the scouring out, under the road, the surface will continue to crack and eventually crumble. It will limit access and, will demand additional maintenance, by the county, until that is no longer feasible and eventually leading to road failure. And ultimately the need for its replacement. This will likely impact habitats. I think that the habitats are being impacted in some ways already. But ultimately, as the road stays in place in this current location, the beach will kind of narrow between that hardened shoreline, and there will be losses of impacts to habitat. And adjacent cultural resources may also be impacted. Okay, so our next strategy is protecting the road. By protecting the road, we are assuming that it would need to be armored in these locations that are threatened by bank recession, as well as armored and elevated where there is coastal flooding. So that means adding more to the road, to the existing road prism, to both kind of provide the space that's necessary to have additional fill placed on the road prism. Obviously, these areas that are shown with yellow and purple dotted line are areas that will require shoreline armor. Using this approach, the areas that are shown in orange require elevation to be out of the kind of future flood areas.
Is that elevation to 13.2 feet above sea level?
No, that's 13.2 feet NAVD 88,
Horizontal.
which is, no, NAVD 88, it's the North American vertical datum. So that's essentially, that is 2 feet above the 100-year flood with sea level rise.
Difficult to interpret.
It is difficult to interpret. Vertical datums are really confusing, and this profile, this is kind of like a slice of the pie of the road, and how much elevation will be added, this may be helpful. So you can kind of see they're in this blue line, just under 8 feet or around 7 feet. That's where mean higher high water is. So your typical storm surge or storm.
Seven, something.
Or
I'm
we
sorry,
share high.
Mean high water mark is 8.7, I believe, here now, for the record, I think. The county,
Well,
Like
it's
that.
different in every specific location, and I have it in my record, and I'm the engineer who drew this, too. So, so their vertical datum, NAVD 88, what engineers use is slightly different than mean lower low water. That's a different vertical datum. This one is the one that's represented in the LiDAR mapping, that surface topography hillshade that we were looking at as the base map for all of the vulnerability assessment. So we try to keep everything in the same language for continuity, and hope that's helpful.
I know we're not supposed to interrupt, but the slide before this, when you're talking about the purple and yellow for armoring,
Yeah.
areas that would need to be armored. Colin would be able to address this better, but back in the early 2000s, that was dug up and packed with rock to like 10 feet down at the county, and they just left like a foot and a half of dirt on the outside, so basically it's already a permanent.
We couldn't hear what she was saying.
Would you like to say it a little bit louder?
So there is armor there. And
Yeah.
so what, already, it was previously armored. So, but of course, with the rise and elevation of the road, there will be additional armor that would need to be added to that.
And the existing armor would need to be replaced to have adequate freeboard to protect the road with the added sea level. So that's kind of a critical thing with shoreline armor. It's usually just a certain height that's referred to as freeboard. And so when the wave overtops, when that the water levels increase, they can overtop the shoreline armor and continue to chew away the toe of the slope or the landward shoreline, in which case it's not really providing that erosion protection function. So you have to replace it and like rebuild it to be able to withstand the additional water level. And otherwise, if the landward soils become saturated and start eroding away, then it is not really protecting the road anymore.
To dive deeper.
Okay, yeah, let's keep moving. for
Yes.
Gallery Walk.
Okay, so, there will be impacts associated with protecting the road and, it's a large cost and other alterations may be needed to the adjacent roads to kind of match, the elevated road locations. So driveways and such would need to be raised to be able to reach the new road elevation in areas where it has been raised. We'll need to expand the footprint and increase the buffer, and some additional stormwater management would be required. Again, as I mentioned, the alterations to the driveways and then the similar impacts to habitats that, where the beach would narrow and there would be loss of porch fish spawning habitats and the areas that are bluffs that are eroding and providing sediment supply to the beach and feeding those habitats would be impacted, and cultural resources may be impacted where they are. Okay, so next we're moving on to the realign and restore concept. So this concept, I want to say, started with us just thinking about if the road wasn't requiring this protection, if it was in a different location, what restoration could be done to this shoreline? And so we assumed that the road was not there. Well, then you could nourish the beach, you could remove the armor, you could restore the habitats and potentially create some valuable to kind of enhance some of the habitats that have been degraded over time as a result of the road being present. Now, we did not want to present just the road not there, because we were concerned that the community would be alarmed that the road was gone. Obviously, this is a critical road to the community. So we merely have just placed it in this location landward of the mapped hazard zones that we're discussing. So this is really just a starting point for the community and imagining a different location for the road. The existing road, if you wanted to explore this alternative, could be reduced to a bike and pedestrian path. And the habitats waterward of the road could be restored, the beach could be nourished. These areas that are going to be more frequently flooded could be restored coastal wetland and providing estuarine habitats and the like. And we'd love to hear your ideas for where the road could go further landward. Not necessarily in this location, unless you like it, then tell us that too, but we really want to hear from you on your ideas and this concept. Okay, I think back to you, Rachel.
Great. Okay. Enough of us talking. Now we want to hear from all of you. So we are going to go into the gallery walk portion of this, and I want to just explain what that will look like before we do that. So we have 4 stations in different corners of the room here. Many of you, when you walked in, grabbed the yellow, green, and red stickers. If you haven't done that yet, please start there. That station in the back is the first one. We have 6 values that we've identified: access and connectivity, environmental and habitat health, cultural and community heritage, cost and feasibility, resilience and longevity, and natural character and aesthetics. And we want you to reflect on those values. We know that all of them are important and it is hard to choose between those. But encourage you to reflect on those, and as you think about Blind Bay Road, for you, which of those feel most important? And you'll be reflecting on them at that station there, using your stickers to vote. And then there's a space to add other comments, other things that aren't included. After you do that, we then encourage you to go to any of the other 3 stations in whatever order you want. We will have county folks at each of those to answer questions, to prompt you with some other reflections and conversation. And we'll do that for probably 30 minutes or so, and then we'll have a little break and then come back together and have a discussion. So that is kind of the logistics for that. About probably 30 minutes total. We really want to hear from you, so use the sticky notes, use the dots that you're given to provide feedback. I guess last note I would add with that, we know that sometimes when people are voting and they see how other people vote, it can bias your response. So encourage you to be brave, reflect on what is important to you, kind of what you're thinking and feeling, and feel comfortable placing that dot where it aligns with you. Yeah.
The county recently finished a project on Baylor Hill Road on San Juan Island. Is that like does that fit into any of these 3 categories?
No.
Okay. Yeah. It looked like more than resurfacing.
Yeah. Colin, do you want to speak to what was done at Baylor Hill?
What is the question?
Oh, Baylor Hill, and you guys finished a project there the last year or so. And it looked like more than a simple chip seal resurfacing.
It was, so that project, and I don't know the correlation here, but that project was to add non-motorized shoulders, so we added some width to the road, and then we raised it several feet through the valley to mitigate against seasonal flooding.
Okay.
And it was a substantial effort. There were thousands of trucks hauling material, and it cost millions of dollars.
So is it like similar to number 2 on this?
Protect the road.
It's kind of, as far as that, there was a section of road there that for decades, because that's a case where is the creek coming down and in the valley, and the road was sitting low and it would overtop, not at where the culvert was. It would overtop in another spot, so that got elevated so that it would continue on. So I suppose, or this strategy number 2 or number 3 would.
So if any of us are on San Juan Island and wanted to take a drive out Baylor Hill Road, that would be a good example of not moving the road, but simply elevating it. And putting tons of fill so that we get a better idea.
Yeah, and recognize that that's a pretty good sized road with bike lanes and everything else in here, because, you're close to the shore and not a lot of traffic. It would be a little bit smaller scale, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John?
Just a suggestion of one thing you might want to consider pointing out or adding to your presentation is that Shaw's unique compared to all the other issues in the county with regard to sea level rise. We don't have a critical road, we have an essential road. So noting for people like Jane and decision makers like Colin that we don't have an option. Every other site has an alternative route and we don't. And I think that's important.
Right.
Yes. Yep. That makes sense.
John, to be clear, and I hear your point and well taken, well noted. Port Stanley, the discussion about a couple of these strategies, if nothing is done as the no management option presents, then there wouldn't be a way around. And it would actually further isolate additional properties that have houses on them. So I'm just saying, in that case, that's
I think the issue
such a road,
the issue at Port Stanley though is inundation. I mean, that's a critical issue.
Right,
There's always an alternative route going either direction from Port Stanley Road.
Yeah.
My point here is simply that all of our services are located at the end of this
Yep,
road.
yep.
And there's no route to get there other than this route.
Yep,
It's a,
that point is well taken.
yeah,
That's why everybody.
it's served a much smaller population, but it's more essential than
Oh,
any other.
it's totally essential compared to Port Stanley. So in there, it's like, yeah, actually, you could leave that road because there are other ways around. Yeah, which is absolutely not the case here.
So we're gonna break up.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you haven't been to Station 1 yet, you can hit that, to
Yep.
lay out, where you are on your value scale, and we'll break it.
And I'm just going to suggest, to the facilitators, do encourage people to move, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of got stuck with one of our spots
Yeah.
because we're so engrossed with our.
Yeah.
Remind us to move around.
All right.
We'll do that.
Go find the station.
So find the station and start chat.
We're supposed to do with the other station.
They'll explain next time, each one.
Yeah, they'll explain it when you get there.
So, come on over. Dave. Come on up. Let's talk.
Yep, obviously, there are other roads on Shaw. Acceptable.
Yeah.
And this one is- Project.
Yeah. We're about to.
Okay, hello virtual attendees. Can you see and hear me okay? Yes, that's a thumbs up.
So,
Excellent.
yeah, so.
I'm gonna go
in this
turn
case
off
here-
the other audio so that you all can hear me and we can participate in that activity. Oh, looks like Tyler is on it. Excellent. Well, thank you all for being here. We are going to do a similar activity as the folks who are here in person. And so to do that, we are going to use Google Slides. I am going to drop a link in the chat here, and then I will share my screen for this so that you all are able to participate. So it looks like some of you might be on a phone, so I apologize, that might be a little bit more challenging. Feel free to also add comments in the chat. This is really an opportunity where we want to hear from you. If you are on a desktop, this might be a little bit easier. So I am going to share my screen here. I'm hoping you all can see this. I'm gonna try to make this a little bit bigger. All right, are you all seeing a slide here? Can you give me a thumbs up if you are? Great, thank you. Okay, so I encourage you, if you didn't follow that link yet that I shared, to go ahead and do that. So we're going to do the same kind of thing. This is a virtual gallery walk. We'll probably have closer to 20 minutes for this, so we'll do that. But this is really a chance for you all to ask questions and provide feedback. And I know that you don't have access to turn your mic off, but please, if you've got questions, just put them in the chat. So with that, if you have not used Google Slides before, there is a button here in the upper right where you can zoom in, and that might be helpful. We'll be looking at maps at different points, so I encourage you to use this if there's an area you want to zoom in and look at, because I know that the text is a little bit small on my computer. Okay, so I'm just going to check the chat, see if there's any questions that have come in right now. All right. So here, the first thing I wanted to show is that the people who are in person have this fact sheet here, and I made a virtual copy here so each of you can look at that. What this does is it describes each of the adaptation strategies. It talks about each of the values that might guide how you think about adaptation. It shows how each of those strategies aligns with the different values. And then it also provides details about cost estimates, what's included in that cost, what is not included in that cost. and then restoration values associated with that. And then this QR code here at the bottom takes you to the county website where additional information will be available. So now getting into the activity portion here. So this mirrors what people are doing in person right now, which is reflecting on values that align with adaptation decisions. So we have these 6 values here: access and connectivity, environmental and habitat health, cultural and community heritage, cost and feasibility, resilience and longevity, and natural character and aesthetics. And I encourage you to go up here, select one of the numbers, and then use this to vote. So select, drag, and drop a 1, a 2, and a 3 to align with the values that you hold. So I will delete those ones, and hopefully you all are able to do that. I will drop the link again in the chat for those who might need that. So hopefully that's working. Gonna see, oh yeah, I see some people in there moving it around. That's great. You all will show up as anonymous animals. So this is anonymous also. So please feel comfortable voting with what aligns with your values. And I'm going to add, if we realize these are, you can hold multiple values. It's hard to choose between them, and there might be others that aren't represented here. And if that is the case, go ahead and go to slide 8 here. And this is a spot for you to add any other values that you might have that you don't feel like are reflected in that other slide. So go ahead and do that. After there's other things that you think are important to consider, you can add those here in 8. Yeah, Dave, thanks. I know it looks like you're on a phone there. So if you type them in the chat, I can help move them for you. Thank you. Okay, so I encourage you to take another minute or so here if you haven't added those in. And then, yeah, other values here. I see someone added fixing the problem before the road collapses. Yep, so urgency or kind of timing, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to just keep us moving for the sake of time here. So now if you were in person, you'd be walking between these different stations, but virtually we'll kind of go through these together. So the first is this no management strategy. So you can take a look here at slides 10 and 11 if you want to zoom in and look more at some of the impacts to the road. So as Andrea, my colleague, shared, areas that are showing up in blue and red here correspond with areas for flooding. And then the yellow and orange show areas with erosion. And so this is split over 2 images. You have the upper half of the road from the ferry terminal down, and then this is the lower portion of Blind Bay here. And so if you were in person here, we have a kind of poster up next to this that's showing the trade-offs for this strategy. So how does this align with each of the different values? Red here shows ones where there's more of a negative effect. Orange is more moderate. Green is positive. So for this strategy, yeah, there's some big concerns that access and connectivity would not be maintained. Environmental habitat and health could degrade, risk to infrastructure or cultural resources if those are present. And it's really a short-term solution. And then more moderate, cost could be, shorter cost in the lower cost in the short term, but a longer term cost for eventually repairing or replacing. So trade-offs with that. Invite you to explore that. And then here on slide 13, we're curious to know how this strategy aligns with your values. So you can select one of these stickers here and then drag and drop it along this spectrum here based on how well this strategy feels like it aligns with your values. So I encourage you to do that. And then on slide 14 here, you have an option to add any comments about what would make this option acceptable to you, unacceptable to you, what questions you might have, other concerns, ideas. Maybe you have some information about current impacts to the road, where you see the flooding impacts or erosion impacts. This is a space to provide that kind of feedback. So I invite you to do that. And Dave, I see you had a question in the chat here about whether the presentation will include Smuggler's Cove Road. This is just focused on Blind Bay Road as an example to explore, but we know that other roads have similar challenges. So some of the same strategies could be applied. The specifics for that would look different. Okay. Give folks a little bit more time here to add how this aligns, and then add any other considerations here. See one comment here that's saying nothing would make this acceptable or unacceptable because the road is mandatory. And yes, that is a unique challenge here with Blind Bay Road. Everyone relies on it. Okay. Welcome to our new attendee. We are doing kind of the same version of what is happening in person here. So I'll drop that in the chat in case you're not in there. You're welcome to use that. Okay. And it looks like you can see the in-person folks as well. That's kind of fun. All right. So we're gonna go to strategy 2 now. So this is protect the road. So this map here, again, you can use this button here in the upper right to zoom. I know it's hard to see the map, so please use that to help look more closely. And so this would involve raising the road in sections shown in orange, or adding new armor or replacing armor, which is shown in that yellow and purple dashed line. There are benefits and trade-offs for this strategy. Big benefit could be maintaining access and connectivity, but some downsides as far as impacts to habitat, expensive, additional costs for maintenance, changes the character of the shoreline, and has some limited time that it could be effective. So similar to the first one here, encourage you to look at the maps, reflect on the alignment with the values, and then move that sticker to kind of show how well does this strategy align with your values. And then similarly on slide 20 here, you can add any comments for this. What makes this acceptable or not acceptable? What other concerns or questions do you have? This is a really good space for you to provide that kind of feedback. And if you have any questions, you're also welcome to put them in the chat and I will do my best to answer them or find someone else who can. I'll leave you all with this one for a minute. I'm just going to step away briefly and check how the in-person folks are doing. I'll be back in a moment. All right, I'm hearing a reminder for people to circulate in the other room. Okay, so it looks like people have added votes there. Yeah, if you haven't yet, I encourage you to also check out slide 20 here and add some comments about what would make this protect the road strategy acceptable or unacceptable to you. So what help understand kind of your thinking as far as where you put that sticker on that sliding spectrum. Okay, so these all slides are all still open to you. Also encourage you to go back and look at 5 here, which has this fact sheet with the costs and the restoration and kind of this cheat sheet of values alignment. Just know that that is a resource for you to go back to if you want that. And then I will keep us moving here to strategy 3. So this is the map for this. This is the realign and restore. And as others have mentioned, again, this is conceptual. We had to show a road somewhere to help folks understand where it could go, but this is just one option for where that road could go. Same thing here, trying to get the road out of the hazard area. So again, different alignment here with values as it relates to access and connectivity, environmental habitat health, cost, resilience. I encourage you to take a look at that. And then here on slide 25, then move a sticker again with how well does this option align with your values? Not at all, somewhat, very much. Please go ahead and move those stickers. And then just like for the other ones, please also help us understand what makes this option acceptable to you or not acceptable to you. What concerns do you have? What do you like about it? What questions do you have? So comments I see on this, one, this takes the long view, and another is how does this affect private land? Yep, that is a very good question. You'll notice on the fact sheet, if you take a look at that, the cost estimates for this one do not include property acquisition. That is something that is very challenging, and I'm sure will come up in the conversation later, that the strategy would really rely on folks kind of voluntarily participating and helping to find a new strategy for the road. I'm seeing another question here. Are there other routes off of existing roads? Yeah, I think that is fairly limited on some northern parts of the island. Yep. And okay, question here from Glenn. Have you looked at other relocation options? Since this was really conceptual, we did not, this was not a kind of feasibility assessment to look at different routes. We really just looked at, based on the topography and based on the hazard areas, kind of where is the closest that the road could move off course to get it out of the hazard areas. So basically the shortest length of road that could be used to kind of get around the hazard areas, which doesn't mean that it's the best route. That was just kind of the first attempt to come up with other places. So if you look here, you know, one option here, this section of road shown right there, that is just to get around this 5 feet of sea level rise scenario here. So to avoid the road being inundated. Yep. Okay, well, thank you all. Please continue to go back and forth between the different strategies, add other questions, add other feedback. And then we will move on to the last one here. So this is the last station in person, is to reflect on all of these strategies together. So going to slide 28 here, you know, each strategy has benefits and trade-offs, and a combination will likely be needed. So we're curious, after reflecting on each of these, what feels like the best fit for Blind Bay Road? And since this is a Venn diagram, you can kind of choose where on the spectrum for each of those makes sense. So you can again select that sticker and move it based on where you feel like best matches your perspective. And you can provide other comments, questions, ideas, anything related to any of this. This is a really good spot to capture that here on 29. Any other questions, concerns, or ideas? And I'm going to leave you with all this for a minute to reflect on this on 28 and 29. And I'm going to check on the main room, and I will be back shortly. Okay, virtual folks, still here. Hello. Oh, you can't see me. There we go. Okay, I see in the chat here a drawing here from Nick. Has this been considered with another route? That specific one has, we did not look at that for this because we kind of, as I said, just looked at what's the like shortest route that we could get around some of those hazard areas. But that is great. There are folks that are here in person that are also kind of drawing on pieces of paper other ideas for ways that roads could connect. That's exactly the kind of discussion we want to have. So thank you, Nick, for sharing that. All right, so looking here at 28, it looks like people are very much in the like, no management is not the direction we want to go, but looking at kind of some combination of protect and realign and restore. That is very consistent with what I am seeing in the room there as well. Okay, so yeah, curious here, what are other concerns, questions, or ideas? One comment here, take the long-term solution. Rarely does a short-term fix prove to be cost-effective in the long run. Yeah, it is, yeah, important with all of these to take the long view. Any change to the road would be a big investment in terms of money and resources. So not something that you want to be fixing 10 years from now. Okay, I'm going to look in the chat. Any other questions or comments that are coming up for you all that you want to talk about or want me to bring back to the in-person folks as we move into the community discussion for the second half? If so, please put them in the chat or make sure that they're reflected on these sticky notes here. Okay, with that, I'm gonna step away for a minute and we'll have you all back online shortly.
The way the road goes through the water would extend their shoreline. If they were to get that right of way back and have a private shoreline again, maybe they would be open to the road being realigned in the landward side of the property. So I thought that was kind of an interesting trade-off that was suggested. But in all cases, there was definitely feedback wanting to have more realistic costs, including right-of-ways, all of the real costs, like getting getting all of the private properties being connected to the new road. That's obviously a cost that wasn't included. And
as well as purchasing the right of ways or actually compensating all of the individual property owners for, that property that would be required. And then there was a lot of feedback on moving, like, this hypothetical road realignment location is suboptimal for many reasons, because there are existing issues, like hazard areas with the road that it doesn't address. Like these dangerous corners are kind of critical points for people, or several dangerous corners, as well as like kind of persistent erosion here that's not accounted for, and very steep slopes right here that aren't really feasible to the landward realignment of the road. And many people were suggesting that the road should be moved further landward. And ultimately, it would be great if it could be realigned to use some of the existing roads that are located in the hinterland and that are with in ownership potentially by the Gates, the Jones, and maybe the Thomases that could connect to Reef Neck. So maybe having conversations within the community could help build support for that. But lots of feedback on if you're going to invest in moving the road, it should be realigned further landward.
And then the last station, I think many folks made it there, maybe not all, but we asked people to then think about all three of these on a spectrum. Where you align your values. Maybe, yeah, Angela or Susan, any reflections on that?
You know, I think it was pretty quick, so I think it might actually be more helpful instead of what I sort of gleaned a little bit, more to actually open the conversation up, I think, for this one. We can't figure it. I think it would be helpful to open this one up for conversation. It would be a good segue to kind of start the conversation.
Bunch of us missed that one.
Yeah, and, yeah, at the end of the conversation, on your way out, is, you know, because these actually represent some of our notes for the session. So, yeah, feel free to add a sticky to that, so.
Kendra, do you want to just describe what that one is?
So this one was, okay, based on everything you've seen and all these different, where do you, you know, that's a Venn diagram, right? Where do you sit? In terms of your thinking about what fits with your values and for this community. So that you get a chance to put a dot wherever you feel you sit. If someone put it dead in the middle, so you get to pick. I was experienced to ask the homeowners that are here that would be impacted by the road moving inland. Would it make a difference to you as a landowner if the road were to move more significantly inland compared to what is suggested?
I can just speak for myself. We're all totally self-interested. I would be. Well, it's the caveat for me. I think it's important that road right there is public and it should remain as a walking and a bicycle trail. But I can't speak for my neighbors on that. And I can't speak for the Gates on Grafton Road because they're gonna be taking one for the team to do that. So, I mean, but I recognize what I just said. It's totally self-interested.
I think, Amber, you've got some really problematic topography in my lot and the ones adjacent. And you really can't scoot that road inland without it being, that is just not feasible. Colin might disagree here. And if you're going to move it substantially inward, that's such a long conversation with new property owners. It won't be on my lot unless it fits the back corner, and I don't know how you do that. I mean, if you came down the old easement that runs along in the middle of the Richardsons and cut across Joneses and put to my backside, maybe. But there are also other issues. My entire lot and those real close are glacier fill 40 feet below sea level. I've got 30 feet of sand in my well. It's not if you're going to spend $20 million to relocate a road and you're going to keep it where it's going to be very, very vulnerable to earthquake damage, I don't see how that makes sense either. So it's not, are we willing, are we not willing, would this help, would that not help? We need a whole lot more information from the county From geologists, from substrate, road engineers, a whole lot of people.
I just wanted to share, something that came up yesterday, because, in a small group of us, as we were at one station, a woman mentioned, what she observed happened in and around Christchurch after the really devastating earthquake that took place in the late teens, 20, I don't know, whatever it was, 17, 18, whatever. Apparently because of the liquefaction of the ground, like an entire community was made not possible anymore. Like, and more than that, I mean, all kinds of land was completely compromised and could no longer be developed or used, for any purpose as a result of this earthquake. I mean, such was the impact, the magnitude of the earthquake on the actual land itself. So the question about, yeah, what is the condition of the land in any of those areas that you'd be thinking about relocating to?
Washington State has been on a mapping of the kind of shock, I call them, because it compiled all the well data and put in how deep you have to go to find bedrock. And it seems like there's a whole bunch of information before you fight it somewhere.
What I find interesting is on the Blind Bay side, I think most of the homes have elevation. What I think your last meeting was, talked about,
They're really low.
really low homes.
Yeah.
That are happening there over there, 20.
Yeah, quite.
Is there something that the county can do there that actually protects those? Because right now, they're kind of.
Yeah, well, what did they, there was a great line, you know, delaying the inevitable. By the end of that meeting, people were really clear that, you know, this water's coming and they're not gonna be able to hold it back. The conversation was really around elevating and looking at strategies for community septic and some of those other options for them, which of course they'll need to fund themselves. That there wasn't anything we could do to hold back that water because it's coming from both directions. And that's also the case for Indian Cove on this island, where you have surface water flow that's coming down. And then you have the rising sea. So there are areas, and we have maps available online. If you go to our story map, you can see these zones where you have inundation as a primary factor. And those folks are gonna have to go up in most cases, which is very common and becoming even more common now with sea level rise and flood risk. So yeah, that was the solution there. But so kind of following up on this question of, okay, well, obviously you'd have to spend some time and energy looking at geotech and properties and all sorts of things. And it's probably, you know, a 20-year horizon that I would think at least to be thinking about the longer term solution that might protect this road, you know, during a tsunami or an earthquake, and how would you put that together? How are people feeling about having that conversation?
I've been waiting 20 years to have that conversation.
Okay. Other folks?
Well, I think we have to have it. Just not gonna be easy or pleasant or happy.
Yeah, I think the road is an foolish location and needs to go substantially inland for both of the imminent natural disasters that are heading our way. How we go about that, I don't know. How long it takes, I don't know. But other than something truly critical at this point, I lean towards a lot of the temporary solutions are throwing good money after bad.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, it feels like, you know, just in general, strategy one is not really a viable option. So like maybe a next conversation is like, we're really looking at strategy 2 or 3, and then starting to dig in on those 2 strategies, and get more conceptual ideas about you know, questions that are being raised, costs, you know, where, what the land is under it, what impact this earthquake or tsunami would have, like, if you can kind of start narrowing in on the two solutions that seem like possibilities for this community and continue to have ongoing conversations, you know, not just annually, but like a couple times a year to keep drilling down on these questions and answering these things. So they're not just like big concepts, but we have concrete information to help us make a decision.
Good point. Okay. I think you had your hand up.
No management seems like a ruse. I mean, even if there weren't new projects, there would still be the public works and work done on roads when maintenance and things like that needed to be maintained. So I just think it's, you know,
I think the amount of people here that it's gonna affect and throwing a new road overland for $20-30 million, it's not gonna happen. I think, maintaining the road, not the way it is, but probably piecemealing is gonna be realistic. Particularly in our lifetime, or my lifetime, I should say. There's just not the population to spend that kind of money. It's craziness to spend that much money for 100 people to get to the ferry.
We have lots of roads at risk, so.
Yes.
Yeah, I disagree with that point of view. I think we have such an exceptional community here. There's a lot of folks with public benefit as a high value for them. I can't speak for the Gates, but, you know, certainly they're a big player at the table. I can't speak for the Buck Thomases, but they're a big player at the table. And flanking all of this, I'm not seeing my desired future condition mapped anywhere here. So, you know, some of the data you're gonna pull from me, like, I'm not at all interested in protecting the road, is because I'm really interested in flanking this entire regime that you're asking me to reflect on, which I don't believe in, right? So that the data sets track, but you're gonna have to tease that out from outliers. Lopez probably has similar stuff.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So you're talking about the road going inland,
Way inland.
much further inland. Okay.
It's not even reflected on.
Right.
This
We
map.
just said landward somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's really land.
And I know minds have thought about this for a long time, and that's not a heavy lift for this group of experts to do. And I'd love to dive into the next workshop on a realignment restore with a few more scenarios than what's presented today. I'm excited about that. I'd like it to explore that. I'd like to talk about, you know, John Colson, our assessor, coming in and saying, let's give relief to shoreline property owners, at least for their duration, their life of ownership, so they don't get taxed at a higher rate. They get an amnesty rate. But as soon as that sells, then you can go have at them as new shoreline property owners, right? Different tax structures. So I think we can think about long-term payoffs and short-term gains for people that are doing these huge givings. So I'm super excited about, let's just blow this up to a next 30,000 foot level.
And recognize that maybe there's some short-term solutions to deal with problematic things right now. And still be thinking long-term, for future generations. Because I think I mentioned this to some folks, like these types of projects are generational. You know, we're, the size of the culverts we're putting in, the roads we're having to lift, you know, they need to be there for 100 years or more. So like, do it right, to make sure that happens.
I would just wonder, especially for long-term planning, what are your assumptions? How do you verify them? And is there more than one voice coming at us about them? To me, that would be really critical, and I think they overwhelm the whole discussion.
Well, the idea would be that you have lots of voices in the space and lots of colored pens and laying some things out and talking with individual homeowners.
I even wonder about expertise.
Yeah.
You know, where do you go to the well?
Yeah.
To get
Well,
good data?
Really, one of the areas of expertise that I've always felt, would be hugely beneficial to these kind of conversations are folks that do real estate transactions and easement negotiations, like a WashDOT or another party like that, where that's their business to figure out a new road realignment and talk with property owners and have the dialogue to just see like what's in the realm of feasibility. So that might be, an interesting thing to explore, over time. So, yeah, lots of opportunity. Other thoughts? How about some of the folks we haven't heard from? You guys aren't as rowdy a bunch as you're going
That these with strategy 2 and 3 aren't taking into account the tsunami, which would, I mean, even if they did all that, it seems to me a tsunami could easily take it all out. Whereas maybe moving back.
Not like on Loca. It's out in the Loca, it's gonna be tsunami land. This is not, and even South Beach is gonna be tsunami land. More much more. Because of the way the water is protected.
Yeah, so my comment was about that is when you start talking about 100-year floods, 200-year floods, or tsunamis with planning like this, it becomes kind of irrelevant problem. I mean, if we had a massive tsunami here and it came over, it's gonna, Indian Cove, right? So if we want to plan for the tsunami in Indian Cove, they need seawall. How many people in Indian Cove want seawall in front of their house? Nobody, right? And the same could be true for the 100-year flood or the 200. I mean, these are kind of biblical events. And if we're gonna plan engineering for 200-year floods, I think we're overshooting this problem. Not because I won't be here in 200 years. 200-year flood could be tomorrow, for all we know. That's the way it works statistically, but.
Well, we had 2 years in a row, 100-year storms in 1991.
I mean, those things are gonna happen no matter what. Right? And if the plan is to make sure that we never are impacted by those, that's an enormous problem we can't deal with simple plans like this, right? I mean, the notion of moving the road completely inland away from shore is the only thing that makes sense, if that's really what you're planning. But the problems with that are astronomical. I mean, yeah, I own just a little piece of land that probably wouldn't be impacted by that, but I can tell you, I would never agree to that. And, they'd have to come in with eminent domain and take my land from me before I would agree. And that's probably true of a lot of those people.
However, the person who originally owned my property, Mr. Cavallions, basically owned the community center to Richardson's. And he granted the county a 60, and he deeded over, it's their property, a 60-foot wide easement. So people do these things, and they do it to the future. And the quick claim deed that he signed says, for the public for forever. So, and you don't, in my opinion, if you know that there is a huge catastrophe coming, not planning for it at all is certainly not a solution, and it's certainly not one that California and Japan have gone for.
Well, the way I look at it is, if anybody's ever been to Galveston Island, it's covered with houses now. And they're gonna get hit by a hurricane once every 10 years. And the last time there was a big hurricane in there, the water level in downtown Galveston was 20 feet above normal level. The whole city was flooded, but doesn't prevent people from building, doesn't prevent them from putting roads in, all that stuff. So, I mean, I just think if you plan, you can't really plan for disasters. That's all I'm saying.
No, but you can mitigate.
And that's all great fodder for like long-term planning and group discussion.
you know, to continue this dialogue and try to come up, and it sounds like there was some previous efforts. We'd love to get, if anyone has record of that stuff, it'd be great to get copies of that. As, yeah, just adds richness to the conversation. Other thoughts about this?
Cameron, can you talk a little bit about next steps and how the county's doing long range planning? Like, do you work with Public Works and you're thinking about? I mean, I know there's so many places, right? But
Yeah.
I know this is grant funded.
Yeah, so
It's all going away, or you're still continuing to work on the what are the next steps?
how does it all come together? Well, as many of folks I'm sure know, the county is in quite a budget crunch, but, you know, we have been successful in securing various grants and, you know, trying to move the needle forward on these conversations associated with climate, sea level rise, water resiliency. There's a variety of topics that people are still interested in funding. So yeah, this grant that we currently have has these 2 workshops documenting that, but there is a project in the Blind Bay project on the transportation improvement plan. And so that's, you know, we'll obviously, Colin's here, he's hearing the discussion. You know, so we'll be chatting with him about these pieces. I think it would probably make some sense to continue to have dialogue and, you know, I understand you guys get together the first Wednesday of every month, so.
We're done doing that here.
Oh,
Well, can I say something? Because obviously it bothered me enough to just say that.
Yeah.
So it really seems like if anybody ever listens to like a sports radio broadcast where there's no end to what somebody could talk about, a game yesterday or a game tomorrow. It just seems like that's what I'm hearing. That yes, there's a potential of anything happening. What is the best way to do it, fix it? Well, it's to clean up afterwards and move on. It just seems like you're going into something that nobody has the desire to agree on the total plan or the money to do anything with. I mean, how many people have money to throw away? I don't think, so let's talk about sports. Bills, I mean, it's a never ending,
Yeah.
whoever gave you a deed, or not a deed, but a grant. I mean, it's just that let's start a conversation that'll never end. We'll talk about sports for crying out loud. You can do that from your TV or radio.
Sure.
So I'm sorry, I have to go up for that.
No,
Sorry.
I get it, you know, and yeah, these are, you know, I guess the thing that we have come to appreciate with sea level rise is it's a wicked problem. And it's
Right.
not easily solved.
Right.
And so, but we also know that people don't want things shoved down their throats without consultation and conversation. And so our job is to try to strike that balance of, you know, letting you know, we have something on the transportation plan, we're gonna need to be looking at addressing some aspects of this road. We can certainly have the conversation about, you know, what is a longer term solution so that, you know, maybe it's on the books and when the funding and timing is right, we are able to move on it. You know, in the case of Lopez, we actually have money built into our clean water utility to look at that area and have dialogue with the community to try to address some of the water quality impacts of their septic systems and those sorts of things. So, you know, it's small steps, but it's progress, you know, we're gonna try to move on pieces. It's not gonna be perfect. We're not gonna have all the answers. And it's gonna change over time as people kind of come and go in the community. So, I mean, that's about all I can offer on that. Go ahead. Nick.
Could you say what the relation between the climate element for Blind Bay that you mentioned that is in our discussion here?
Yeah, so in the
Are you referring to, there's a climate element in the comp plan, and we identify, sea level rise is a big
The
factor.
Blind Bay was shifted, something to do with Blind Bay.
We were referring to the transportation improvement plan.
Okay, transportation.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, there is, funding in the transportation improvement plan to look at Blind Bay and sort out, what they can do with the money that they have available.
So is it just a scoping project or is there actually work to be done?
Do you have, can you
I mean,
speak?
is there overlap between what would be done in that with those monies and what's being discussed here? Or-
This information, Colin's here listening, and this can inform, as he moves.
It must be
forward.
monetary, I forget, wasn't it six, what was there amount of money that was associated with that? And does it line up at all with these figures or?
The exercise being discussed today is really a separate exercise.
Okay.
The charge of the Public Works Department is to keep our transportation systems open and safe
Okay,
as they exist today. And it takes action by the county council to change that program. So our charge, and Jerry's here too, so as conditions deteriorate to a point where they become an imminent threat or the public safety or the accessibility of the road, we will mobilize and take action to keep the road open. So, what that means depends on what the hazard is.
Was there- go ahead.
And so, with these coastal roads, we have been trying to get some space in deferring some work so that conversations like this can, evolve in the community, but at a certain point, action will need to be taken, and so we will respond because that is our charge.
Was there a certain amount of money associated with that?
How much money
action?
do you have in the tip?
Our response, is not limited by the immediate availability of funds. So like if there was some kind of event that happened on Blind Bay Road in particular, where access was encumbered or there was an imminent threat,
Mhm.
we will take care of that.
Okay,
And there are economical ways to deal with that. They don't balance all of the things being contemplated today, but there are economical ways to keep the road open and safe. In an emergent condition.
so I guess it just brings me to my final comment that no management option. The cost range is really not none there. Something's gonna happen at some point, and that's gonna, there'll
Yeah.
be some figure associated with that. And it could well be within the range that's here for these other things. It'll be in the millions of dollars, more than likely.
And just to be clear, like the county council would have to tell me
Yeah.
to not manage it. And until it makes that decision.
Yeah.
We are managing it and we will keep it open and safe. So that is really a choice because that's not what exists right now.
I understand that, but there still have to be money spent to keep the road open
Yes.
if there was an emergency.
Yes.
And it's probably gonna cost millions of dollars. Nothing costs thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars now. So, I'm just talking, out loud really, but I guess my point is that the none figure here in the larger scheme of things is really
You're right.
not correct.
Right.
But I was trying to understand, you told me, thank you very much. I
Yeah, we'll
appreciate that.
definitely update that
Yeah.
in the system.
How does the county define eminent? Like when you say when there's an eminent threat, I know that's just in different places that has a different meaning. And so.
Well,
I think she's
Oh,
asking.
That's for Polly.
It's a professional judgment call. So every county has a responsible official who's in charge of doing that. It's the county engineer, whoever holds that title. I mean, some of that authority can be delegated depending on the size of the county or the complexity of the problem, but it is a professional judgment call whether there is an imminent threat or the public is endangered in some way. And so, really, it depends. And sometimes it's not caught, and sometimes it is, but it's a professional call. There's no other way to describe it, is the conditions are evaluated by a professional. makes a decision about whether or not an imminent threat exists and then takes remedial action.
I'd like to give, I'm interested in understanding where your question's coming from, but before, perhaps respond to that question. I think it's very helpful to have an example, that is actual, and that is what we have on Lopez Island, on McKay Harbor Road, above Agate Beach. That is on the tip as well, and that project is already being designed because that on lane. And there are permanent residents who use that road to get to their property. That road is also used to get to, Bureau of Land Management, monument land, federal lands. And, that project has been contemplated for, nearly 10 years or more. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have gone into studying that situation with consultants, looking at road realignment and removal. Not gonna happen, lots of reasons why. No management, not gonna happen, lots more reasons why. In the interim, there will be, bolstering the road. Why? Because it's in imminent danger. All right, the judgment has been made by Public Works that we have to act. And realigning and removing the road is not possible. Just leaving it as it is not possible. It has forced us into a situation where we have to protect the road. That is a live example to which we had over $3 million of federal funds that have now been clawed back by the current federal administration. Now, the county has to go into its roads fund to pay for that. So that new road, the fix of the road, the existing road, will be done in the next 2 years. And I'm now finishing my 3rd year on council, and we have finally reached that conclusion because nothing was done for many years. No decision was made by council. So the reason Blind Bay is on the tip now is because eminently there will be a problem there. And eminently, we will be forced to throw millions of dollars at it. That is exactly what we're not talking about today, right? Because that's a separate discussion. They are separate people who work in separate departments, all right? And that,
But we still talk.
a lot, all the time, every day, right? And grant money to have conversations is far and away different from millions of dollars to fix imminent dangers. And so, how do we define that? We define it by the use of the road and what council decides based on the information provided about the necessity to keep that road. That's where we've landed. I'm not happy about it. Why? Because last night I described it as a Band-Aid, and that's what it is. And, I think it was Jan was saying, well, how long would fixing the road last? We don't know. We don't know. We're gonna throw a few $1 million at fixing the road there because we have to. Is that the ultimate solution? Hell no. Did we contemplate and study and have this thick a document, a study, feasibility study to realign and remove? Yeah, we looked into that. That gonna happen? No, it's not.
And the reason for that, and we had a discussion about this last night too, is eminent domain. So that is really the crux of the issue at a local level. Condemnation of personal property is, third rail conversation. It's not a good one.
It's, you're right, it is a third rail conversation, and, I had a colleague on the previous council I sat on who went publicly stating, we will never do eminent domain. She said that. And I'm like, that's not a good thing to say. Right? So, yeah, it's an awful conversation, but I don't know, I've now inherited a seat on a council where there's a hell of a lot of indecision for a hell of a long time, and I'm sick of it. And you can hear me say that in council meetings. We gotta start making some decisions. So, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
On the bright side, as an engineer myself, bright side is there is a solution. And there's a very workable solution there. it's a one-lane road. We have a one-lane, we have a two-way road. How often does a ferry come? Very infrequent. And many communities would appreciate the amazing low density of cars we have on this road. If we had to go to a one-lane road, I think that's exceptionally viable. You know, whether it's done visually or it's done with lights. Going to a one-lane road would give the right of way additional room to do bolstering. So, I mean, I appreciate it's not the end all be all everything, but there's a solution. It may have cost $1 or $2 million, but if you spend $30 million, you're making that back in the first year of interest.
And that's a good point. Having been to Scotland recently, they have pullouts all over the country where it's a one-lane road and then frequently there's a pullout.
Yep.
And so.
Iceland too.
So I think that is actually a very good suggestion for a way to live with the one.
Yep. We'll certainly look at that.
Hello.
Can I ask,
I'm sorry.
I know that you're talking the pond stuff, but in front of my place, there's a real repair, which is being undercut. Wouldn't it be very simple and quick to just put in some relay lights and require that vehicles over a certain tonnage just take the inside lane?
Wait, was there any portions of the road?
Yeah. You know how it's sloping because it's being undercut and you have all of the construction vehicles, the concrete trucks, the dump trucks. You know, wouldn't it just be simple to just move them to the inside lane? Put in a warning light system or something.
I'm not familiar with that type of mechanism to move traffic over, in my experience, I see a lot of the, because of the low traffic anyway, people kind of skirt away from the slumping shoulder already. People who are professional CDL drivers look for those types of hazards and try to avoid roads where I'd be happy to look at that more closely when you're
I just
talking
thought that
about.
might be a preventative measure because we talked repeatedly about that curve collapsing.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, is that a lot of the subsidence we're seeing on the road is not solely due to coastal actions. It's these roads were not designed for these heavy vehicles. And even though the traffic's tiny, it's more than it was 150 years ago. And these are heavy vehicles on 4 subgrade, and we will see that is a lot of the failures you're seeing on these coastal roads. They're just built on poor soils.
Well, we want to be cognizant of the time. This has been a really good discussion. We'll be taking this information back. If you didn't sign in, make sure, so we can send you an email about where this information will lie. And we'll continue to talk internally about strategies. If you have other suggestions, you want to get those to Tyler. We'll put all of this together and start noodling on what happens with Blind Bay Road, and probably be back for a visit in the future. Can't say exactly when, but we've got it on our radar, and it's in our tip. And we know that, you know, there's valuable shoreline habitat here too. So, you know, we'll keep moving forward, and try to find solutions as we can afford. That's where we're at.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.